putting this one on the books as one of the many reasons why it's important to provide trans people the health care that they need on a timely basis. The issue, so it's great in the United States, healthcare costs like a lot of money, especially surgery. Like $10,000 is kind of a minimum unless you have insurance, and in which case the insurance, may or may not cover it. They may only cover it partially. You might have to jump through 6 months worth of hoops with a psychiatrist in order for them to cover it. And if you can't get it covered, then yeah, it's like minimum $10,000. Have fun. Enjoy. But at least you can get it if you have the money for it, right? You can get it in a timely fashion. The difficulty with countries that have a national healthcare service, we talk about it in the UK a lot, about how they have these really long wait lists. It's not just the UK though. In New Zealand, for example, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the YouTuber Cops Hate Mo. Mo is someone I know. They're pretty young, trans individual, trans masculine, who was trying to get top surgery in New Zealand and ended up having to get that surgery privately. They ended up having to crowdfund, like $16,000 to pay for it, to get it done by someone who is not on the National Healthcare Service. Essentially, actually with Mo, they had been on the wait list for a long time, and then they had a follow-up assessment. And even though they had like the highest score on the I need this mentally part of it, because they're skinny and they didn't have like back pain problems, so they didn't score the highest score on the physical need for it aspect, they were just like kicked off the wait list. The doctors on the NHS there were just like, well, we are not going to provide this for you, even though you've already been waiting for it for a long time. Just like shrug. And yeah, I don't think that Mo posts much on YouTube anymore. I see them post on Twitter occasionally, but yeah, they've got other stuff they're focused on. They're in college, they're, whatever, doing other stuff. But that was kind of a big thing. Just like, yeah, the NHS has decided that I don't need this surgery, and therefore I can't get it with the thing that I pay taxes for. Everybody in these countries pays taxes to the healthcare service with the expectation that it will be covered. These waitlists provide situations like this one. Major content warning, by the way, for essentially self-harm that has been instigated by being on a wait list and being put in that desperate situation as a result. So the story today is a trans teen attempts a self-mastectomy while waiting for surgery in a, quote, act of desperation. This teenager reached a breaking point over the waiting list times for surgery in New Zealand. National news outlets in New Zealand reported that the 18-year-old trans masculine individual was taken to an emergency department after attempting a, quote, partial left mastectomy at home. The incident was described as an act of desperation over the, quote, unmet need of masculinizing chest surgery. So this is exactly the situation that Mo was dealing with. It wasn't just the wait list, but it was, in addition for Mo, that the doctors just decided to kick them off the list. Just, nope, we're kicking you off the wait list. The New Zealand Medical Journal reported that a combination of being unable to afford a private consultation and the, quote, significant psychological stress of gender dysphoria pushed this teen to attempt the surgery himself. Several hours later, he sought medical attention fearing potential nerve damage. Surgeons noted deep cuts around his entire left breast and subsequently completed the mastectomy on both breasts. Reports say he was discharged the following day. That's like not a good message. Like, oh, it turns out if you just try to do a surgery on yourself at home, that's apparently the way to get fast-tracked on the wait list. So they'll just remove both of your breasts after you try to do that. Wow. Bad message. You should have just been providing this care anyway. Practitioners noted that his improved mood and self-esteem during a post-op assessment a month later. Quote, he reported improvement in self-esteem and self-confidence and his ability to complete schoolwork and was looking forward to enrolling at university. A mental health assessment conducted before the mastectomy by doctors noted that he didn't have any previous psychiatric diagnoses and wasn't suicidal. The report said he had been considering gender-affirming surgery for years, and a lack of access to gender-affirming surgery led to this act of desperation. I feel like it goes without saying, don't do this. Don't. I know that, like, people throughout history have done orchiectomies at home. Like, The risk of you developing an infection is so high. The risk of you giving yourself nerve damage is so high. Like, yeah, this is not a good thing to do. You should not try to do this. I promise you, listen, trans people have existed throughout human history. We existed before the advent of safe surgeries. We have existed since before you could get safe hormone therapy replacement. I promise you that you can live through it, you know? If we lived in the world of like 200 years ago where there wasn't access to this healthcare, you know, trans women can drink pregnant horse mare urine in order for it to achieve an estrogenic effect. Like, would you have decided that it wasn't worth it to live, you know? If everyone around you is affirming your gender and all that, like, that's one of the main predictors for mental health outcomes, you know, is just having people who are supportive. Like, I promise you can make it through this. Like, I promise you that the wait list is not that long. Even if it is long, like, you can work hard and save up your money and do a GoFundMe if you need to. Like, I promise you that this level of desperation is not necessary. You do not need to do this. Yeah, like, even if you're like, I don't ever think I could afford bottom surgery, like, attempting something like this, like, you get put under general anesthesia, even for an orchiectomy. I know someone who just got an orchiectomy, which is literally just they remove the testicles and, like, she still has a scrotum and everything. Like, that surgery can be done while you're awake with like local anesthesia and a lot of it. But, like, for the most part, these surgeries, you get put under general anesthesia because you will go into shock. Like, you'll go into shock and then you'll lose a bunch of blood, and that is not a situation you want to be in at home. Hey, you should like, comment, and subscribe. And you can hit up the Patreon or maybe buy one of these hoodies that I'm wearing because it's good merch. Do it. Do it for the cat. Do it. And yes, I'm not joking. Truly, people in history would drink the urine of pregnant horses because it has mammal estrogen in it, and it would cause people to grow breasts, like trans women and trans feminines. Like, yeah, that was not a joke. So, like, we have been, life finds a way, right, for the entirety of human history. But, like, surgery has not always been an option, and we still lived. Maybe not all of us, especially because of the social, you know, refusal of acceptance aspect of it, but I promise you, you do not need to do this. Yeah, and the article goes into it. It's worth noting, just like many other countries that offer gender-affirming surgeries, waiting times for mastectomies in New Zealand are increasingly long in the public healthcare system, while private procedures can cost tens of thousands of dollars. According to the New Zealand not-for-profit organization Gender Minorities Aotearoa, the waiting time for gender reconstructive surgeries, such as bottom surgery, is estimated to be 10 to 12 years. The group urges activists to contact their member of parliament to push for further funding to help cut the queues. It is an issue of underfunding, stretching the resources thin, which happens in NHS, like NHS is all over the place. These crazy long wait times and closing clinics, even though tons of people need the services, and just deciding that people don't need this care, even though they're telling you they need it. Like, this is part of the problem with cis gatekeepers in the medical community, is like, you can't tell me that I don't need top surgery. Like, I guess legally you can, but it's gonna push people to do desperate shit like this. Like, this is what happens when people don't have it's like abortion. People don't stop getting abortions when abortion isn't legal and safe. They just do it at home. They just take a bunch of drugs. They just do coat hanger abortions, and they get, like, full body sepsis because of doing an unsafe procedure. Like, the rate of abortion in countries where it's safe and legal is the same as the rate of abortion where it is illegal, because people will find a way to do this anyway. And, like, this is one of those things, like, people will do it at home, or they will attempt to do it at home. I'm like, I like, this must have been such an intense amount of distress. Like, he must not have been completely in his right mind to have done something like this. Because I'm sitting here thinking, like, your results are not going to look very good. Like, you're just going to, like, cut things off, and then how are you going to make sure that it's actually flat? Like, can you even see what's going on down there? Like, so many things could go wrong with that. And I think most of us couldn't imagine. I think some people could imagine performing a self-orchiectomy, and I'm sure many, many, many people have done that in the scope of human history. Something like a mastectomy or any other kind of bottom surgery kind of thing. Like, I think most of us are like, wow, I can't imagine being that desperate. But yeah, this is what happens when you force people to wait a large number of years for a procedure that they know they could access immediately if they only had tens of thousands of dollars. And like, some people have this level of dysphoria where they're sitting there looking at their lives and they're going, if I know that I am never going to get this, like, I would rather be dead. And I understand that feeling. And I also think that that is the kind of thing that you feel when you're 18, you know? Like, and I'm not trying to be ableist about it or anything, but I think when you're 18, you're still dealing with like the brain chemistry of a teenager. And that means having a really difficult time seeing beyond this moment, that like a couple more years of is not going to kill you. And that like the short-term goal of you wanting this really, really bad does not, like, that should not supersede the long-term goal of like living long and healthy. As a trans woman who suffered from severe gender dysphoria, once you reach your pain limit, you just want the pain to stop. Listen, I think that this is also the kind of thing that you would do if you don't understand how different physical pain is from mental pain. Like, mental anguish is one thing, but like your body is going to respond to the physical pain very differently. And like I said earlier, this is a situation where you could go into shock and then like be unable to get somewhere. Like, you might not be thinking clearly enough to pick up your phone and call emergency services. Like, if you're at age 18, like, there is so much for you to look forward to in your life. And anything that you're dealing with right now, it feels so big. Like, your first breakup feels so big. And, like your firsts and like all this stuff that's happening to you when you're a teenager, it feels like the end of the world. And it's not. I promise you it's not. Padfoot Sam points out that working out can help with trans men. Yeah, that's another thing, is like Ty Turner, I don't think has had top surgery, and I don't even know if he feels that he needs it because he just works out a lot. And so his chest up top here is really big, and like he kind of just looks like a guy who took too many steroids when he was younger. Like, because taking too many steroids can cause you to develop some breast tissue. So like, it's hard to talk about it too, and I don't want to encourage people to over-exercise, because one of the ways that trans men exercise control over their appearance is by developing an eating disorder. So, they starve themselves because like, okay, if I just have less fat on my body, then that means maybe I will have smaller breasts and my hips won't be as pronounced. And then if I work out a ton at the same time, then, it'll change my body and everything. And like, you have to keep everything within limits. You have to make sure not to develop additional pathologies while you're dealing with your dysphoria. You don't want your dysphoria to give you anorexia athletica. I think this is one of the situations where it would be good for people with dysphoria and no other health issues to have access to a therapist. Because, a therapist cannot resolve your gender dysphoria. A therapist is not going to be able to cure you of your transness, but they can give you coping skills. If you're in a situation where you are having these action urges to do something that is going to make the situation worse, and this is one of those things, like he had an action urge to do a self-mastectomy, and acting on that urge put him in an emergency room, Sometimes all you need is the skills to not take action to make the situation worse, and to like help you deal with the situation in the moment, deal with those feelings in the moment, move you past those feelings so that you can have a better day tomorrow. And yeah, the fundamental problem is not solved if you're extremely dysphoric over your chest, right? But that doesn't mean that like you need to do something dramatic and end up in the emergency room. These countries with national healthcare services are really, really doing a disservice to the community, because people do die waiting. Like, they commit suicide waiting, and they do outrageous things like this while they're waiting for the healthcare. Just give people healthcare. He seems okay now. I will say, like, this article is basically like he had a post-op appointment 1 month after being in the emergency room, and he seemed to be doing well. Like, when he went to the emergency room, they ended up just doing the double mastectomy on him, and he seems to be doing okay, which, like, is not the takeaway message. It is way more likely that you would bleed out. It's way more likely that they would just patch you up as good as they can and then send you home and you have 1.5 breasts, you know? Like, the takeaway here is not, you know, try it yourself and then the doctors will fix it when you get to the hospital. But at least, you know, nothing dramatically bad has happened to him. Apparently, like, he seems okay. He's looking forward to starting university. You know, hopefully this means he can move past this part of his life. And it's like, it's good that he's okay. I'm glad that the New Zealand healthcare system is good enough that it was able to, like, correct at least the immediate problem. It may well be at that point there wasn't enough tissue to salvage anyway, sure. But he had only gone at one side, and they did both sides for him in the emergency situation, surgeon, whatever. Whereas I think in the United States, they would have just tried to fix that left side and then leave the right side alone. But yeah, this is what people will do when you don't provide them with healthcare that they state that they need. They do dramatic things. They engage in sex work so that they can afford the private surgery. You know, like, they put off going to college because they're saving up for the surgery. All kinds of things. They may have just done the other side to mitigate the possibility of him trying it again. I mean, yeah, fair enough, I guess. Maybe it was like a harm reduction choice. But yeah, we don't want people to take away the message from this that, like, oh yeah, I'll just try it myself and then if it goes bad, the doctors will fix it for me. Like, no, don't do it. Do not. Bad idea. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvog, Michelle Frateroli, Amanda B., Michelle Winter, Wellington Marcus, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Suzanne Maynard, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Ella V. Nobody, Pastel Infinity, Jamie Jam, Nova, Sojo, Elizabeth Bartell, Kevin Young, Athiette, Celeste, Desi Quiche, Liam Hodgson, Mr. Atheist, and Jack.